You're listening to international investment advisor Doug Goldstein on the Goldstein on Gelt show, the financial show where we'll talk about how you can make the most of your money. With all the confusing financial chatter bombarding you each and every day, Goldstein on Gelt will give you the practical information you want and need about living a financially stable life. Here's your host, money maven Doug Goldstein.
Okay, we are back. I'm very happy to have with us Susan Suinat, who is the president and CEO and co-founder of the Overseas Vote Foundation. Susan, a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
I've actually got a number of questions about voting, but before I do, could you just tell me what made you found or become a co-founder of the Overseas Vote Foundation?
Well, if I really start at the beginning, one day I decided that it would be good to try to kind of help other people get their voices back to the U.S. through their votes. I figured living overseas, which I've been doing now for approximately 20 years, and this was about 8 years ago, I thought, well, let's get involved. The only real way to do it was to help people vote. And so I thought, well, I'll get the information. I called the one friend I knew who might have it, swung by his place, was handed a stack of blurry forms and a 500-page instruction book, and told, here, just have people fill this out, and if you have a question, look in this book here.
Oh, wow.
Well, coming out of the software business, that was enough to give me the idea of a lifetime, and ever since then, I've been trying to automate and make the whole process user-friendly through Overseas Vote Foundation.
So what does the overseas voting process look like today?
It's changed dramatically, not just because of the work we've done, but also because the work we did do stimulated complete electoral reform through Congress, and a major reform act was passed in 2009, which was called the Military and Overseas Voter Empowerment Act, or MOVE for short. So, but prior to that, I was actually the first person to put the overseas voter registration process online in the form of a little software wizard.
All right, wow.
Basically took the 500-page instruction book and streamlined it so a voter didn't need to know a thing. Just answer the questions and out pops your form with the information on it, a nice letter with instructions telling you what to do, and you sign the form and basically get it over to your election office. We provide the address. There are about 10,000 of those moving target addresses across the U.S., by the way.
Sorry, 10,000 offices to where people would send their ballots?
Yeah, I'll backtrack a little bit. When you do vote from overseas, given that we're not like France or Italy or some other sophisticated countries who do give representation to their overseas citizens, we as American citizens have representation through the states that we are associated with. And as a voter, that's the last state that you lived in the U.S., or that your American parent lived in at times. If you're a child who's born overseas with a state that allows voting rights for children born overseas, about half of them do, not the other half. So really, your vote is being counted back in your election office. So let's take my case, for example. I moved from a little town in California, and when I vote, first when I register and apply for my absentee ballot, both of those are done through the same form. It's one process, one form that needs to be filled out, not two, like if you're in the U.S. as a domestic absentee, it's even harder. We actually have it easy. We have one form that does both at the same time. So it registers you as an overseas voter, and it requests your absentee ballot. That gets filed back with my election office over in Santa Cruz County. And it would be the same for you. You would send your form back to your election office.
Wow, so it sounds like this process is being repeated 10,000 times, so much for efficiency. You mentioned that Congress had passed a law to make it better. What was their ultimate goal? Because if people living outside the United States are heavily disenfranchised, that, I would think, would actually be good for the people in power. Why would they want to do anything for us?
Well, you implied that we're heavily disenfranchised. I would say we're not. It's what's sad for me as someone who has personally dedicated so much time I come out of the software business, by the way. I've spent 8 years developing software to make it easier for people to register and vote.
And it was,
Millions of Americans that don't use it, that don't use their voting rights, that are living overseas and not participating, that's the saddest part. The processes are there for them. What drives Congress to do this? Couple things. One of them is the military vote. Our voting rights are covered by the same law as military voting rights, meaning overseas citizens' voting rights and military voting rights are both covered under the Uniformed and Overseas Citizens Absentee Voting Act. If there's one department in the U.S. government that actually usually has a budget to change things, it's the Pentagon.
All right, so we're just riding along on their coattails.
Yeah, following that Reform Act, $25 million went into developing better systems through the states for overseas citizen and military voters in the last couple of years, and that's a fortune in an area where very little investment has gone in. The other thing is, think about this vote. If let's say it's 2 to 4 million eligible overseas Americans actually did vote, there'd be a lot more decisions made based on the overseas vote being the influencing or discerning vote that is being cast. Now, I mean it when I say there's very low turnout on the part of overseas citizens, but these can be deciding votes. And because elections are razor thin, it is in the interest of many members of Congress to get these votes in. There's one Congresswoman Maloney out of New York who really believes that she won her original bid for a congressional seat because of overseas.
Wow. So you mentioned about your technology background. I'd like to touch on that. We are talking to Susan Suinat, who's the president and CEO and co-founder of the Overseas Vote Foundation, which is an organization that helps Americans living outside the United States to vote. It still seems like a very paper and pencil sort of process. Is there a technology that could be implemented that would simply make it easier for these millions of Americans to vote? In other words, not make it as low tech?
Well, that's a good question. And I think that you're probably approaching this from the aspect of, I can do my banking online, why can't I vote online?
Right.
Well, there are a lot of reasons. First of all, when you do your banking online, you are not kept anonymous. With voting, who you vote for should be anonymous, okay? Or this should not be tied together. The more online it gets, the more you give up your right to privacy and confidentiality of your vote.
Okay.
Now, you should also think about the world of cybersecurity right now. Nobody is winning the cybersecurity war. It's not our government. It's a watch what you wish for scenario. If there's one thing I think you probably don't want, is the ability for your vote to be manipulated indiscernibly, which is exactly what can happen to it the minute it's online. Hence the controversy around voting machines.
I see. Oh, as opposed to simply paper.
Well, what we have done, what we advocate, is that we want everything possible to be online and done with safe technology, except the actual ballot. That we would like to be verifiable, auditable, recountable, and preferably that there be a paper record of that ballot. And there's a lot of reason for that. Again, just basically going back to the fact that the minute it's only online, you will never, as a software expert, I'll tell you this, and there is not a single computer scientist you can find in the United States who will contradict what I'm saying, that the minute it's only online, you have no idea whether it's been changed.
So the system as it stands now from a technology standpoint, you're actually pretty happy with?
It's dramatically improved. Previously, you could only do things on paper. Now you can pop online at overseasvotefoundation.org. You can fill out a few screens of information. Out pops your form produced to your state requirements, you're given the address to send it to. You can send it in many, many cases online, but we ask voters to also follow up with a hard copy. Ballots are being, every voter has the opportunity to receive their ballot online. Mm-hmm. So the transmission time for ballot delivery has been cut to minutes. This has dramatically changed the voting process overseas. What we hope is that the states do request voters to print those ballots out and return them on paper. For that, we provide special services like Express Your Vote, where we work with FedEx to provide services to voters overseas to express their ballots back. The military provides free express mail off all military bases. There is always the option for sending back in paper, and I think we do need online services as exceptions for ballot return, say from dangerous areas, remote areas. But as a rule, I would say the more you look into it, the more you actually don't want it, because you lose control of the integrity of the vote.
One of the rumors that they have, and maybe it's in fact true, is that the votes that come from overseas are actually not counted unless they would make a difference. Is that true?
It's completely false. It's a myth that keeps hanging on. I wonder if it serves some people to dissuade others to vote, that they say, well, your ballot won't be counted. Let me just wipe that myth away. Ballots must always be legally counted. Election officials don't have a choice to say, I'll count these and I won't count those. They have to certify the vote count after an election. There's no ballot that goes uncounted. What there might be is an extended counting deadline, but it's still counted. There may not be a big enough margin but every election is called early based on, okay, we have 6,000 more ballots to count, and we already know that so-and-so won by 10,000. Then they call the election, right? But it doesn't mean they don't count the remaining ballots. They absolutely always do.
Okay, well, I'm glad you shattered that myth. We have been talking with Susan Suinat, who is the president and CEO and the co-founder of the Overseas Vote Foundation. She herself moved overseas about 20 years ago, and since then has really been, or for many, many years, has been watching out for the rights of many of us who also live overseas, who try to get our voice heard. Susan, we're actually just about out of time. It's very interesting what you're talking about, but tell me in the last few seconds, how can people find out more about the work that you're doing?
Well, you can visit our website. That's overseasvotefoundation.org. And in the U.S., we have usvotefoundation.org. It's really a website that is not very issue-oriented, I'll tell you that, but it is there with services for you as a voter anytime you need them. And there's an application we have called the State Voter Information Directory. You can click in there, you go to your state, and you can always see upcoming dates and deadlines, elections that are coming along. And on the website, you can register and request your ballot, which you need to do every election year if you're an overseas voter now. But it just takes a few minutes. You can keep a voter account. That's like a personal democracy dashboard, your own account system. It lets you reprint your forms very quickly. If you need an emergency ballot, you can get it through us as well. So I would just say every election year around January, click into our website, check the upcoming dates and deadlines for filing your forms, and get it done early. Then, that's about all you need to do. We do have a voter help desk to pose personal questions. We have a team of people that respond.
And they'll advise who to vote for?
No, we don't get into that, but we do have a candidate finder. If you're confused, you can look up your candidates and check on their history. But that's about as far as we go there. We just try to make it easy for you to vote for who you would like to vote for.
That sounds great. It sounds like a very important and very pro-democracy service that I hope that not only the Americans can use, but people around the world will learn how important it is to vote in their own country's elections.
Well, thanks for highlighting it. I really appreciate that.
All right, Susan, thanks again for your time.